Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome to this week's teaching tip for classroom excellence. Today's tip is board equals paper, which is all about modelling and explicitly teaching how students should be taking notes. And the key phrase you're going to use is make your paper look like mine. So as I say, it's all about modelling, moulding, shaping, and really carefully leading students when they are taking notes during your lessons. And this is really invaluable because it will set students up for success at GCSE, A-level, university and beyond. So let's get started, shall we? Let's see what this is all about. So as I say, the key phrase with this teaching technique is to say, make your paper look like mine. And that encapsulates the fact that this is all about explicitly teaching, modelling, shaping and scaffolding effective note-taking by your students in your classroom. And it really is so important, as we all know as teachers, to be as explicit as we can about everything. We should always be trying to make the implicit explicit. And I think this is a really great example of that. You know, you must never just say, take notes. You've got to go into detail. You've got to explicitly teach, model, shape and scaffold exactly what you mean when you ask students to take notes during your lesson in your classroom. So as I say, this is all about modelling, shaping and explicitly teaching how students should take notes in order to capture information that you present. And so, you know, a really important focus is on the phrases that we're using. So try to use phrases such as make your paper look like mine to introduce modelling for note taking. So use the whiteboard, the interactive whiteboard, and even a visualizer if you have one available to showcase what excellence looks like in terms of student note taking and book presentation. You know, give them those visuals that will inspire them, encourage them, and it will shape how they then create their own notes in their own books. And gradually, by explicitly teaching, modelling, shaping and scaffolding note-taking, students will develop note-taking expertise and independence. And as I say, that will really set them up for success at GCSE, A-level, university and of course beyond. So just to give a bit of background on this, really, you know, students often have to learn how to be students as much as they need to learn the content and the key skills. So it's so important that we're explicitly teaching those learning behaviours and that we're instilling in our students those positive learning habits. And one of the most complex and critical aspects of being a student is, of course, learning to take notes and retain a record of one's knowledge. And, you know, it can take many years, can't it, before students are fully responsible for their own note taking. And, you know, we in our classrooms play a very important part in helping students on that journey to note taking expertise. So when they are then in a lecture hall or theatre at university, they will be really confident and competent at taking notes, and then they will be getting those first class honours degrees when they graduate. And so, you know, the role that we need to play as classroom teachers is we need to explicitly teach and model. And as I've said, we've got to scaffold as well for our students how to take notes about the things we're discussing and, you know, the discussions we are having in our classrooms. And as I've said, this is going to benefit them not just in your classroom and in the assessments that you set them, but also then in, you know, all of those future important stages of their educational journey, and of course then in the workplace as well. So what should we actually be doing? Obviously, I've spoken about the importance of saying, make your paper look like mine, and then actually modelling for students on the whiteboard, for example, how you want them to present their notes. Or it might be, you know, using a visualizer when you're annotating an extract of a text so that students can actually see what you mean when you say, highlight that word, you know, add in notes around the side of the extract. So, you know, it is about providing those visuals so students can copy from you. So it's all about that modelling, but then it's also about guiding as well. You know, you've got to guide students, you've got to walk them through the note-taking process. As I said, you know, never assume that students will just know how to do something. So, you know, tell them, for example, what to title their sections, tell them when to skip a line, tell them how to make subheadings and headings. You know, it's a great great opportunity for some metacognition to actually narrate your own thinking of, right, well, what heading should I use so that this section is really clear when I come back to revise from this page? Tell them when to highlight something. Again, another opportunity for some metacognition to actually narrate you thinking, oh, I think that's really important because that's gonna, and then, you know, give you reason. So I'm going to highlight that. And as I've said, narrate your thinking on how to select and summarize information. You know, it can be overwhelming, can't it, when students are given a big piece of text, for example, and you're asking them to select out the most important bits, you know, or to take notes from a bigger piece of writing. So actually narrate how you would do that. Remember, you are the expert in your classroom. You know, you are the one with the degree, with the knowledge, with the experience. So, you know, narrate to them, give them that insight of how an expert would take those notes, because they will learn so much from that. They will benefit so much from that. And that will really help them in the future when they are completing similar tasks and they are working independently in terms of their note taking and information understanding. So here's just a 3-step plan that I think you could follow if you want to incorporate this into your teaching and implement this in your classroom practice. So again, that key phrase is make your paper look like mine. And obviously you can modify that to fit the specifics of your classroom, but keep that in mind at all times, I think, because that helps me to remember, right, I want to model how I want students to take notes. I want to be, you know, really explicit in terms of how I want them to present this information in their books. So a suggestion, stage 1, is start with a fill in the gaps graphic or knowledge organizer. So as you fill in a blank organizer, you know, that you've got in front of you, either using a visualizer or typing it up on the interactive whiteboard, the students then fill that in at the same time. So, you know, you're completing the table, the organizer, the worksheet, and they are simply going to fill in everything that you fill in. And that just gets them into the habit of replicating your work. So they start to understand what is required of them, you know, because you are showcasing excellence to them. You're showing them how it's done. And then, of course, this is where that scaffolding kicks in, because we start to remove the scaffolds, don't we? So number 2, as students gain more autonomy, continue to model what note-taking should look like and make sure you are guiding students through the process, but, you know, take that step back. So don't get them to just copy everything that you are doing when you're modeling, but, you know, be really clear about what you want them to do. So say, take careful notes, and then be really clear what that means. So instead of them just then copying everything that you're doing, you move on to giving really clear instructions about what you expect them to be doing. So they've seen it and they've copied it, but now they're actually being given clear instructions and they're having a go for themselves. And then, of course, number 3, we're going to gradually begin to divest ourselves of responsibility for the exact phrasing and let students have a little bit more autonomy. So step by step, you know, we are removing those scaffolds and we're letting them, you know, make those decisions and judgments for themselves. Now that they've seen those models of excellence, now that they've been guided in how it should be done, they can now have a go for themselves. We've taken those stabilizers off. But, you know, in Teach Like a Champion, Lemov says, know that it may take many years before students are ready to own full responsibility. So, you know, you don't need to rush this. It's really important, actually, that we get it right. So take that time in terms of the modelling, the scaffolding, the guiding, and then, you know, keep on checking in with students. Don't then just say, okay, you're on your own now. Always be really explicit in terms of the notes you want them to be taking and how you expect that information to be presented. And, you know, I think this is a really great investment because it means students can then use their books as a great revision resource when they're revising for your subject. But also it really helps them when they move on to the next stages in their education and when they go out into the real world as well. So yes, I hope that's been insightful. Let me know what your approach to modelling note-taking is. If you've got any phrases you use or any feedback on doing this in the classroom, always great to hear from you in the comments. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye for now.